Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And it's a Wednesday. It is Wednesday. It is Wednesday, which is the middle of the week. It is what a time to be alive or whatever. Got a whole bunch of stories. I've got a whole bunch of different stories and stuff to talk about. So we're just kind of gonna go into it. I don't know how else to go about it. There's just so many little things to talk about. I figure we should talk about some of them. Just a short rundown of topics from the title. We've got Allison Mack. She was in Smallville. If you'll remember who Allison Mack was, she was blonde, big teeth, very large teeth. She had short hair, and turns out the real person, the Allison Mack, not the character, but the actress, she was in a cult that enslaved women for sexual favors to the cult leader. So that's kind of interesting. She was sentenced today. She was sentenced today for her criminal culpability. So we're going to talk about that. Bill Cosby, he's off now. He's done. He is out of prison, or about to be out of prison, or whatever. He's been ordered released. I think he's actually out. We've got Ronnie O'Neal. He has been sentenced. If you do know, don't spoil it. But if you don't know, we'll find out if he received the death penalty in Florida, which is certainly an option when you're convicted of murdering two people, attempted murdering a third, and also trying to burn down your house. So we'll find out if Ronnie O'Neal was sentenced to death or to life. Chauvin, there's talks of Chauvin, and I think it's time to have this discussion because the rumor has it that a Chauvin plea deal on the federal charges is coming. And I think that a whole lot of people are about to be real surprised about what that plea deal may be. And so we're going to talk about it. And believe you me, I think some people are going to be really, really pissed off about it. And so that'll be fun. That'll be fun. The U.S. the Supreme Court is talking about evictions, ending the eviction moratorium. They decided not to. Even though they decided it was illegal that they did it, they decided not to end it. So that's kind of fun because it's going to probably end soon. So that's another one. And then there's more. Britney Spears' conservatorship has become a pretty big topic, and I wanted to do a video on it today. I just did not have time. Wolfman, spoiler alert, you are far more right than you know, and that plea deal is going to make a lot of people really mad. And we'll talk about Chauvin in a little bit. Britney Spears' conservatorship is becoming a very big topic right now. And I have not talked about it much on this show. I did talk about it on Flash's show on Saturday. And now, just today, there's actually new news on it from today. The judge has declined to remove her father as conservator yet again. So, despite all of her pleading, all of her expressions of actual fear of her father, her assertions that her father is forcing her on Valium, forcing her on birth control, keeping her to an insane management or an insane work schedule and all of that. Despite all of those things, the court said, nah, it's okay. So the dad is still the conservator. So we may talk about Britney Spears. The Chris Avellone thing, Law Twitter is having a meltdown about Chris Avellone, which we talked about yesterday extensively. There's one thing that you need to know about Law Twitter. Law Twitter is not, nothing is ever a monolith, right? Kiwi Farms is not a monolith. Law Twitter is not a monolith. But there's a group of Law Twitter, what do you call a group of fatzos? Like, it's like a murder of crows, right? I don't know what a group of fatzos is. Is it like a bumble of lardos? That's what we're going with. I like a bumble, man. That's funny. So we've got a bumble of lardos, a galaxy. All right. So we've got a bunch of these. There's a group, and what has become interesting to me from like an anthropological perspective is watching this group of unsociable people come together to like backpat and slap ass and hand job each other on Twitter. They call each other in for reinforcements, and they move in a pack around Twitter. It's really weird to see, and they're all very self-congratulatory. But the interesting thing about it, and I noticed this some during the Vic case, but you see it really showing through on the Avellone case here, is because there's not the same sort of dynamic with the Vic case, right? Like with the Vic case, at least you could be mad at me. You could say, well, that guy's just being mean or whatever. And that's a lot of people did and still do. That's a different thing. With the Avellone case, there isn't a me. There's no one to focus the energy against. So they just talk about the situation. And what you notice when you can look at both of them and find this out, but when you take me out of the equation, it's more apparent. These people are all just simps for me too. Like their timelines are the same. Their opinions and thoughts are the same. And if you were to put sodium pentothal in them, which would have to be a large dose, of course, or whatever, the joke truth serum, whatever that is, you spray the truth serum into one of their orifices and wait a few minutes for them to come around. What they would basically tell you is that when a man is accused by a woman, there is no such thing as defamation. So I find their behavior on the Avellone thing very interesting and telling in that way, because it's true. It's true. They do not believe that defamation is a thing that can exist in its current facilities when a man has been accused by a woman, because they're just like, well, there's no way to know. It's like, well, no, I mean, there are ways that they know, like either the P went into the V or the A or the M, I guess, or it didn't. Like that's the answer. That's it. So the thing either occurred or it did not occur, and their entire supposition is like, well, it's he said, she said. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not a lie. So that's just been an interesting thing. I don't think I'm going to go through though their tweets and really like break into them. Not today, for sure. Not today, for sure. But I'm not going to go into it right now. But it's something I've been noticing, and people have been sending me stuff and laughing at it, and it's good. It's good. So I wanted to acknowledge that that's a reality that's out there. There's some other stories, but since we've got, so Allison Mack, sexual issues. Ronnie O'Neill is a murderer, apparently. Cosby, sexual issues. Chauvin, murder. Evictions, well, that just seems rude in general because landlords are kind of like garbage. With his very non-controversial roster, today's show is actually going to be sponsored by Ridge Wallets. That's right. The Ridge Wallet, this beautiful, beautiful piece of, couple pieces of metal, polymer, and more metal and some sort of woven nylon fabric. It will be sponsoring the show today. You can go to ridge.com/nose and use promo code NOSE to get a discount on your Ridge wallet. Father's Day has passed, but there's another one coming just a year away. Plus, the Ridge wallet is great for all occasions. I am a huge fan. Unironically, if you followed this channel long enough, you actually know that I even positively promote the Ridge wallet when they're not sponsoring the show, but this one is actually sponsored. And I want to make that very clear. Ridge Wallet has paid me money to tell you to buy a Ridge Wallet. And the reason I want to be very open and clear about that is because my favorite thing about the company is not their wallet, though it's great. It's not their knife, though it's great. It's not their backpacks, though they are great. All of them are great products. My favorite thing about Ridge Wallet is that they sponsor guys like me, guys like Yellow Flash, the Quartering, people who end up on the wrong side of public opinion from time to time. And Ridge Wallet, sticks with it. They do not restrict what we say. They do not really dictate that much how to do their ads. To me, that is actually the truest sign of a company that wants to do business and make their business about the product. They're not trying to force a narrative. I don't see a bunch of weirdo like Me Too stuff and crazy concerned tweets coming out of the company. They just make a really good product and they just advertise it where they think people will buy it. And so if you like Ridge wallets, if you need a new thing, if you want to minimize the size of your wallet, get one. You won't regret it. They're not the cheapest thing in the world, but they last a long time. And they're a lot smaller and more compact than a regular, bifold or trifold wallet. I had one of those for years, and ever since getting a Ridge wallet, I'm now on my third one. This is my third wallet from them, and I've liked every single one of them, and I would never go back. Never, never, never to having a pocket full of bullshit. So there you go. Ridge.com/nose in all caps. And the promo code is NOSE. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I know a lot of you have bought Ridge products and used that promo code. Believe me, that helps me because it lets Ridge know that they should sponsor me again. And I appreciate that. And trust me, the people getting the products, they're going to like them. I really, really recommend the backpack, the smaller travel backpack. The next sponsored spot I do, I'll bring it down and show you. It is phenomenal. It's the backpack I use when I travel everywhere I go. So, great company, great products. And there you go. I think I've done my duty. Can you put the AK-47 down, sir? Please put the gun down. It's okay. Have a whiskey or whatever. All right. So that is that. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Okay. Sell out? Hell yeah. Can I sell out more? Look, I will sell out to any company that does not control my opinions. That's the main thing. They've never said, you know what, let's stray away from this topic. They've never even, not even a breath about it to me. So yeah. If you want to sponsor a product on my show, I'm happy to entertain it. If you tell me that anything is off limits, the deal's off the table at that point immediately. Eldon Bainling says, why do you have 3 wallets though? Well, I bought one and then I got 2 from the company. So there you go. You get a paycheck from your job? Sell out. Dang right. Dang right. Okay. So let's hit these early super chats and then we will go into the rest of the show. Wolfgang Deo says, I propose critical liberty theory. Ask yourself, is liberty present? Can you speak your mind here or over there? Or are you tyrannized? If there is no liberty, how do we spark it? There you go. How many stonks can a Ridge Wallet backpack hold? A whole lot of stonks. James Karg says, so angry I have to miss the first half hour of these again, and with so much news too. Hope you're still doing good, Nick. And I'm really hoping Pennsylvania has security insurance because Me Too is going to go DEFCON 1 on them within the week, guaranteed. Yeah, to any celebrities who may still be existing in Pennsylvania, get out. Get out. Your past is coming for you. Your past is coming for you. Eli, man, they're not all that expensive. They're not all that expensive. They get cheaper. J Bones, the backpack I like, I mean, I forget what it's called exactly, but I'll tell you. Their website's running slow. Are you guys bombing Ridge.com's website? I think it's the commuter backpack. Just a second. Yeah, the commuter backpack, weatherproof, is the one I have. It's great. It's really, really great. It's phenomenal. I would strongly, strongly recommend it. Okay. That's enough Ridge talk for now. Can the knives cut through son of a bitches? Yes, they can. Nick's Hex says, are the $85 ones good? The classic backpack ones? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know. I don't have one. I mean, I would assume they're still good. I can't speak to, I can't speak to it as well. The commuter is the one I fly with and travel with everywhere I go. So, all right. What am I? Oh, the wallets? Yeah. The different price in wallets is literally just the finish on the outside. The first one I got was the burnt titanium finish, which is like it's a lot less expensive than the one I have now. This one, this is the it's like Ember, I think is what it's called. This one's like $130 or $140. It's pretty expensive. And the gold plated one's like $200 or something. But yeah, all the wallets are basically the same thing. They just have different finishes on them. Okay. Back to where we were. Wolfgang Deo says, smash the like button, you maggots. Mario Carter 13 says, BBC News confused Bill Clinton and Bill Cosby. Did they really? I hope it was on purpose. Oh, who said this? Someone sent a message. I hate what YouTube has done to super chats. I really hate the management system, and I'm going to complain forever. Batgoat says, I love you, Nick, and I hate your stupid new camera thing. I'm done pouting, and I'm back with you, you fancy lad. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you are. Kiwi Goes Live says, hey, Nick, you have packages coming from me to you. Ooh, sounds sexy. One is a movie I bought off Amazon. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay. The other is those cigars I promised and a fun thrift store find. Awesome. Very cool. Thank you. Thank you. I will look for them. Rick Nikita says, Ridge Wallet, the only wallet guaranteed to keep your foreskin safe. Why? Why would you do this? Why would you do this? Okay. Oh, I also, speaking of packages, let me back up so I can unzip. Real quick, just because I like this has nothing to do with the show, but hey, it's a 3-hour live stream and, you know, I get to waste time. Behind me, I got new Warhammer stuff today. Look at this. Look at this thing. It's amazing. It's beautiful. They're putting so much work into these books. I mean, are you serious? Why? They damaged my wallet. But not the rich wallet. It can't be damaged. It's indestructible. That's not binding. And then we've got this one too. They've been like working overtime on this. So it's got these are Imperial Guard things. I just briefly want to say. I appreciate when a company puts time and effort into what they make and pride. Like making a good product that people want to buy. It's like a foreign thing to a lot of companies. It drives me crazy. Anger on the Angriest Boy unboxed it. I was denied one. I'm actually hopefully going to bring back the unboxings on my media channel for these things, or the kind of the exploration of them. So I will make a point to do that, Angron. I've gotten a whole bunch of them lately, and I've got a whole back catalog of them to go through too. So I need to start doing that again. I've just been very busy. So I will work on that. Oh, also one more thing. I think I am getting potentially into the live streaming beta program for locals. So if I get into that, there will be some locals live streaming going on. That'll be well, it'll be exclusive to locals, I assume, because yeah, that'll be the only way. I will announce it when it happens, and I will announce live streams that are happening. But yeah, so that is coming, and we'll figure out what to do with it. What about the Sigma program? I'm not in that, but I am in the Smegma program. Okay. Let's do this. Let's talk Allison Mack. Do we have Trying to figure out if we've actually got Allison Mack's full sentencing memo. I'd have to find it. She looks terrible these days. Let's see. Oh my gosh. I just want the memorandum. Well, here. Pull this up. That's how she looks now. Which is, you know, I guess that's how you look when everything is going to hell. This is not it. Let's see. Where is... Oh, I am going to kill... You know what I hate? Why can't these news organizations just put the damn memo in their article? Put a link of it somewhere. Ooh, do we actually have this? Otherwise, I've got an excerpt from it. Let's see. Oh my gosh, I hate this system. Okay, anyway. Let's just start. Let's just start. So, judge says Allison Mack willingly enslaved, destabilized, and manipulated women. Read full memo. Okay, I would love to. Are you going to provide it? I don't know. I don't think so. They have key excerpts from the memo, but I don't think they actually have the memo itself. So that's nice. Okay. Yeah, she flipped on him. She did flip on him. So the federal judge presiding over the prosecution of NXIVM's sex cult case has released a blistering memo on his decision to sentence actor Allison Mack to 3 years in prison for her role in the aiding of Keith Raniere, the self-help guru who is now a convicted sex trafficker serving a 120-year sentence. Isn't this interesting? Wasn't NXIVM like on the rise as like a new news outlet? They had a Twitter presence. They were publishing stuff. I remember at the time they seemed to be getting some attention on this. He is now a convicted trafficker serving a 120-year sentence. U.S. District Court Judge Nicholas Garofis did not mince words. He faulted Mack for using her celebrity status as a star of the long-running CW drama Smallville to recruit others to submit to Raniere's twisted desires. Mack's ultimate downfall was her involvement in what was purported to be a women's empowerment group known as DOS, MS-DOS, apparently. It turned out to involve master-slave relationships among members, some of whom were coerced into having sex with Raniere. Raniere was convicted on multiple counts of sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and fraud and sentenced to 120 years in prison last year. You abuse this position of power to persuade and pressure women to join DOS, Garofis wrote. You capitalized on your celebrity and these individuals' eagerness to be close to you. You told them you were recruiting them for a women's empowerment sorority, misrepresented and obscured fundamental facts about the organization and the conditions of membership. You told them that Keith Raniere was not involved. You did not tell them that they would be required to engage in sexual conduct. Mack also received a $20,000 fine, 1,000 hours of community service. She will surrender to authorities on September 29th. Her attorneys have requested that she be allowed to serve her time in a federal prison on the West Coast as her family lives in Orange County. So, here is the excerpts from the memo. Here are the excerpts from the memo. Ms. Mack, you pleaded guilty to 1 count of racketeering and 1 count of racketeering conspiracy predicated on conduct that included forced labor, extortion, sex trafficking, and wire fraud. You admitted to conduct in connection with your role as a first-line master in the secret organization DOS that included recruiting women to join the organization and requiring them to serve as your slaves. By many accounts, you were able to use your status as a well-known public figure to gain credibility and influence with Nexium and DOS recruits. You abuse this position of power to persuade and pressure women to join DOS. You capitalize on your celebrity, and these individuals' eagerness to be close to you told them you were recruiting them for a women's empowerment sorority and misrepresented and obscured fundamental facts about the organization and the conditions of membership. You told them Keith Rainier was not involved. You did not tell them they would be required to engage in sexual conduct. You required your slaves to provide collateral, both as a price of admission and on a continuing basis, in order to ensure their obedience and secrecy. The collateral that you extracted from your slaves included explicit photographs and videos, confessions and accusations that would damage them or their loved ones if released, and rights to significant financial assets. For example, one victim provided a sexually explicit video, credit card authorizations, a series of letters falsely alleging sexual abuse by a close family member, and the right to a family heirloom. Someone in the chat was asking, couldn't they just say no? Once you get to this point, they then have blackmail all over you. She testified explicitly that she believed her collateral would be forfeited and made public if she reneged on her commitment to DOS. In other words, you demanded that these women give you the keys to the most intimate, personal, and valuable parts of themselves so that you could maintain power over them and have leverage to direct them to do anything you wanted. And what did you direct them to do using your leverage? You directed them to subject themselves to extreme sleep and food deprivation and geographical isolation. You know, that's really... Can we stop for a second? This is a really weak use of power. You have full control over someone. They are your quote-unquote slave. You get to force them to do whatever you want. It's like, you know what I want you to do? I want you to not sleep or eat, and I want to take you somewhere isolated. Really? All right. And to perform uncompensated labor whenever asked, often for your own benefit or gain. So wait, she's a FinDom and they're Fin subs? She's fluffy? Or they're fluffy, I guess? You directed them to submit nude photographs of themselves and to be branded on their pubic areas with a symbol that, unbeknownst to them, included Mr. Rainier's initials. And in several cases, you directed your slaves to engage in sexual contact with Mr. Rainier. You used your leverage, your power over these women to recruit and groom them as sexual partners for Mr. Rainier and to pressure them into engaging in sexual acts that, according to their testimony, they did not want to engage in and would not have engaged in voluntarily. This court, in sentencing Mr. Rainier, made it very clear how seriously it views the conduct for which he was convicted. When it comes to DOS and the monstrous crimes he committed in connection with that organization, you are an essential accomplice. You willingly enslaved, destabilized, and manipulated other women so that when they were at their most vulnerable, when they believed they owed you total obedience and that anything less than that would cause them serious personal and financial harm, when you had taken from them their sense of agency to make their own choices, you gave them special assignments to satisfy Mr. Rainier's sexual interests. Mr. Rainier could not have done that without you. You did that together. The evidence presented at this trial demonstrated that you were not a begrudging or passive enabler, but rather that you were a willing and proactive ally. And for that, you get 3 years. And for that, you get 3 years. The victims of your conduct have described through their testimony at Mr. Ranier's trial and through their letters and statements to the court the serious psychological and physical injuries that they suffered at your hands. They have described your cruelty, your lies, and manipulation, your apparent sadistic pleasure in watching them suffer, and your creative enthusiasm when it came to developing new ways to debase them. This sounds like the synopsis of a hot Pornhub video or whatever. They have described enduring psychological trauma as a result of your actions. The court acknowledges that to some of them, no sentence short of severe punishment will seem sufficient, and that no sentence of any length can truly redress their trauma. The seriousness of your conduct and the harm that you wrought dovetails with the need for your sentence serve as a forceful deterrent, both for you over the next many decades of your life and for others who might be tempted to use their privileges and authority to inflict harm and exert control over the vulnerable and impressionable. For all these reasons, I think that a serious sentence is appropriate. Well, then why didn't you give one? There are also important mitigating factors, 3 of which I want to emphasize. First, your lawyers make a persuasive case that you, like the victims of your conduct, were ensnared in Mr. Ranier's coercive and manipulative web. Like your victims, you turned over collateral in connection with your involvement in DOS. Like your victims, you were subject to abusive and unreasonable demands that were designed to destabilize you and deprive you of your agency. I don't doubt that you were also manipulated and that you also felt captive, even as you were inflicting those very consequences on other women. In the language of DOS, you were a slave as well as a master, and the harms you inflicted as a master were to some extent demanded of you in your capacity as Mr. Ranier's slave. Even the letters from your victims reflect a kind of ambivalence. Many of them see you as both as their abuser and as a fellow victim. That is something that weighs on me. It is hard to determine an appropriate sentence for a perpetrator who is also her co-conspirator's victim. Okay. Second, you have expressed remorse and contrition and made significant progress towards rehabilitating yourself. And I see no reason to doubt that your efforts and your progress are sincere. In contrast to other individuals who have remained deferential to Mr. Ranier, even as the artifice of his virtues crumbled, you have begun the hard work of unraveling the lies and grappling with your culpability and the consequences of your behavior. I don't doubt that it has been difficult and painful to dispel some of the illusions under which you are operating and to attempt to see yourself and your behavior with a new kind of clarity. I commend you for having the courage to engage in that work. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. Your contrition and ownership of your actions cannot repair the damage that you inflicted, but it is an important and encouraging step towards your own rehabilitation. I urge you to continue that work during and after your sentence so that you may better understand for yourself what happened, why it happened, what effects it had, and how you can ensure that it does not happen again. Third, you have assisted the government with its investigation and prosecution. As the government described in its sentencing submission, you began to cooperate with their investigation approximately 1 month prior to Mr. Ranier's trial. You provided key details about Mr. Ranier's role in DOS, including his solicitation of nude photographs and sexual encounters. You turned over evidence, including emails, documents, and an audio recording that became a crucial piece of evidence at trial in which Mr. Ranier devises the DOS branding ritual. According to the government, you are willing to testify at trial, though you were not called upon to do so. The government takes the position that while you could have been even more helpful if you had begun to cooperate sooner, you deserve a sentence below the guidelines range in recognition of the assistance that you provided. Taking all this into consideration, my task today is to balance the need for a sentence that adequately punishes your serious conduct with the need for a sentence that supports, rather than disrupts, your efforts towards rehabilitation. There will be more chapters to your life after your sentence concludes, and it is the court's hope that you will be ready and able to make the most of those chapters, and that the family and community that have supported you through the last 3 years will aid you in continuing your work of rehabilitation as you move through your sentence and as you eventually move beyond it. I've considered the range of sentences that are available and the range suggested by the sentencing guidelines. I have also considered the need to avoid unwarranted sentence disparities between you and other defendants who have been convicted of similar conduct. I've considered my obligation to impose a sentence that is sufficient but not greater than necessary to achieve the objectives of sentencing. I agree with the government and with your lawyers that a downward departure from the guidelines range is warranted in this case. A sentence even in the lower end of that range would be much greater than necessary. At the same time, for reasons I have explained, I believe that the nature and consequences of your offense and the need for deterrence warrant a serious sentence. While I accept your contrition as sincere and your efforts towards rehabilitation as genuine, it is impossible to ignore the tremendous injuries that you caused. For that reason, I believe that a carceral sentence is appropriate. So that's carceral sentence means incarcerated, prison time. 3 years. 3 years is what she got for that. So there you go. She should be happy with that result. She should be very happy with that result. Because she got a much lighter sentence than would be expected, even with her cooperation. Remember, importantly, that I think the first Halloween episode I ever did on this channel was her case. That would have been 2018, Halloween of 2018. Was when, because that was I remember it. The reason I remember this is because I looked up Allison Mack on Google Images. I was like, well, we got to show the chat reminder of what Allison Mack looks like. And I typed in Allison Mack into Google while it was on screen, and I hit enter, and I got a bunch of fake nudes. So I had to go in and learn how to blur that out. Because you know, you can't show a bunch of nudes on the YouTubes. That's not acceptable. So that's why I remember when that was. So we're talking, they've been trying to crack this case for now, what, 3 years? It took her a long time to turn and help the government. A long time. Let's see. This is how she looks now. She didn't actually age that much. I mean, I would expect she looked way worse than she does. Let's see. Here's how she looked in Smallville. So, yeah, I mean, she actually doesn't look much older at all. And this is a long time ago. So I guess good on her. Nardo Polo says, so don't know if you're just unaware, but some steps for brainwashing is sleep. Yeah, I know. I was making a joke. Did she get the brand deal or whatever, though? I don't know. I guess that's how you'd be able to tell if it's a deep fake or not, is if she has a branded pubic area. But Stephen Frost says 3 years is an apology for Smallville, not a sentencing for a leadership role in a cult. Oh, no. Oh, no. But yeah, so she's going to prison at the end of September. Man, money's great, isn't it? Money is great. With money, you too can help lead a sex cult that enslaves and ensnares women. And what you can do with that is then organize a plea deal in which you get 3 years and you don't start your sentence right away. In fact, you get, let's see, a 3-month vacation first? You get 3 months off before your sentence begins? No big deal. No big deal at all. Law McCaw, I don't know if it includes time served. I don't actually. She's been on house arrest, so I don't think so. I don't think so. She's been on house arrest in a very, very nice Beverly Hills mansion, if I remember right. So there you go. Everybody involved in this case, though. Everybody involved in this case were terrible people. The Rainier guy, terrible, terrible person. Allison Mack seems to be pretty terrible. Doing this stuff, but you know, seems like a lot of work. Like if you have the money to like create a compound and make a cult or whatever, couldn't you just go like to Vegas and buy a prostitute or whatever? Couldn't you just like do that? Michael Palmer says, money ain't doing Maxwell any good. Not even a $30 million bail. Go figure. That's because Maxwell, Ghislaine or whatever, she's, the people that she's got the info on have even more money. So yeah. So there you go. There's the story on Allison Mack. I just wanted to wrap it up because I talked about the case a long time ago. I stopped covering it because there were so many documents. I mean, just mountains and mountains of documents. Lots of back and forth motion practice, trying to get her into house arrest and all this stuff. It was really boring and got really, really annoying to follow. So I stopped following it and just figured I'd find out when whatever happened. And now we know what happened. She gets 3 years. There's the end. That's the end of her story. Hashtag her story, not hashtag history. Hashtag her story. Her story. Her story. Okay, I guess we can talk Ronnie O'Neal, right? Do you guys want to watch the sentencing it takes? It takes a little bit. Oh, no, that's the guilty verdict. Yeah, the penalty phase takes a little bit of time. I guess it's not that long. It's not that long. We can hear how this plays out. The whole video is 13 minutes, but there's a whole lot of boring stuff that the judge says to the jury that we don't need to watch. So we won't watch this whole thing. Here's Ronnie over here. You can tell by the hair that that's him. This is not Ronnie O'Neal. Neither is this guy over here. Ronnie's this guy. You can only tell from the hair at a certain distance. Ann Lay says, is there any legal implication for a judge not offering any reasons in his denial of a Schwartz hearing? We'll talk about Chauvin. We'll talk about Chauvin in a little bit.
Please make sure all phones are turned off.
You know what's amazing? So you probably heard the little doodle of the phone there that the judge clearly heard.
Juror number 7, our fourth
I don't know if we're going to get to it.
That
they
the
don't turn off their phone.
to penalty phase, correct?
Yes, sure.
Okay, please.
They don't turn off their phone. The judge is like, make sure your phone is turned off. And so, you know, the person's like, oh, shit. Gotta remember to go turn off my... They don't turn off their phone. They don't turn off the ringer. This is one of the most baffling things. If you're in a courtroom, turn off your damn phone. Just turn off the ringer. Just mute it completely and you're fine. If you're in a movie theater, turn off the ringer. If you're in church, turn off the ringer. I love it when people's phone goes off and they just like silence the ringer then. They're like, oh, God. And then it goes off again. It's like, it already happened. Just silence the ringer. Why is this hard? The judge, like, their phone just, and the judge is like, okay, turn off the phone. And they're not going to do it. Nobody moves. Nobody wants to admit that they're the one, right? And then later, it's going to happen again. The judge is like, I'm going to take that phone away. The judge should have held them in contempt for 200 years. Forever. Forever. If you can't figure out to turn off your damn phone in a courtroom, then you don't deserve to be in society. Just turn off your phone or leave.
Hand the verdict form to the bailiff.
Thank you. It's a stupidity thing.
State of Florida versus Ronnie O'Neal III. Case number 18 CF 4019. Division, Trial Division 1. Verdict form, death penalty. We, the jury, find as follows as to Ronnie O'Neal III in this case. A, aggravating factors as to count 1, Kenyatta Barron. 1, the first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the aggravating factor, that the first-degree murder of Kenyatta Barron was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. 2, Ronnie O'Neal III was previously convicted of a capital felony or a felony involving the use of violence to another person. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the aggravating factor, that Ronnie O'Neal III was previously convicted of a capital felony or a felony involving the use of violence to another person. Yes. B, aggravating factors as to count 2, Renivia O'Neal. 1, the first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel.
Did you guys notice? How does Ronnie's not a big dude. He's got a double chin, though. Look at that. How do you manage to have a double chin? He's got to be, what, 175? Tops? How does he get a double chin? I just noticed that. The funny is his like beard, his like beard shadow here almost looks like a prosthetic double chin that he's strapped on like to bulk him out. that line just, it makes it look worse to me.
We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the aggravating factor, that the first-degree murder of Renivia O'Neal was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. 2, victim was less than 12 years of age.
Yeah.
We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the aggravating factor, that Renivia O'Neal was less than 12 years of age. Yes. 3, victim was particularly vulnerable due to advanced age or disability, or because Ronnie O'Neal III stood in a position of familial or custodial authority over the victim. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the aggravating factor, that Renivia O'Neal was particularly vulnerable due to advanced...
I also want to call attention to something I didn't call attention to during the trial. Ronnie O'Neal is Ronnie O'Neal III. His son was Ronnie O'Neal IV. Now he's Ronnie whatever. Whatever the new last name is. They said it. I don't remember it. The daughter's name was Renivia. The man, he can't come up with other names. He's like, oh, if we had a boy, it'd be Ronnie the Fifth. But we had a girl. How about Renivia, though? I didn't notice it earlier.
Age or disability, or because Ronnie O'Neal III stood in a position of familial or custodial authority over Renivia O'Neal. Yes. 4. Ronnie O'Neal III was previously convicted of a capital felony or a felony involving the use of violence to another person. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the aggravating factor that Ronnie O'Neal III was previously convicted of a capital felony or a felony involving the use of violence to another person. Yes.
So that's something we didn't really talk about during the trial as well. I don't know what it was, but Ronnie here has a previous felony conviction involving violence as well. I don't know if that had to do with him with the Allahu Akbar. I don't know if that was related in the same way, but yeah, Ronnie had a previous felony violence conviction as well. So
before I go any further, I just want to caution any family or friends of either the victim's family or the defendant before I go any further in this verdict form. No matter what the jury's verdict is, it must be respected. And please, there are not to be any emotional outbursts. Please. If you answer yes to at least one of the aggravating factors listed in Section A or Section B, please proceed to Section C. C, sufficiency of the aggravating factors. 1, reviewing the aggravating factors that we unanimously found to be established beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A, as they apply to Kenyatta Barron. We, the jury, unanimously find the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a possible sentence of death. Yes. 2, reviewing the aggravating factors that we unanimously found to be established beyond a reasonable doubt in Section B, as they apply to Renivia O'Neal. We, the jury, unanimously find the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a possible sentence of death. Yes.
Okay, so at this point, the jury has concluded that there are aggravating factors. They have concluded that there are aggravating factors, and they have now concluded that those aggravating factors are sufficient to support a death penalty sentence. And now they will determine whether or not he will get that death penalty sentence.
D, mitigating circumstances. One or more individual jurors find that one or more mitigating circumstances was established by the greater weight of the evidence. Yes.
They also found a mitigating circumstance.
For the death penalty for count 1, Kenyatta Barron. We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A outweigh the mitigating circumstances established Section D above as to count 1. No. F, eligibility for the death penalty for count 2, Renivia O'Neal. We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section B outweigh the mitigating circumstances established Section D above as to count 2. No.
There you go.
If your vote...
We don't need to go through the rest of it, because the rest of it is her just verifying with the jury that the answers that they gave were accurate. But if you missed it, Ronnie O'Neal does not get the death penalty. Ronnie does not get the death penalty. He is actually just going to get life in prison without the possibility of parole. They have decided that there was a mitigating factor that outweighed the aggravating factor, and he does not get death, which I think is surprising. I thought for sure that he was going to get the death penalty. But he's out. Or, well, he's out. He's out in prison. He's out in prison, out from dying. They do not say what the mitigating factor was in this hearing. So I don't know what mitigating factors they considered. And only one juror is required to find a mitigating factor. To find an aggravating factor, they have to be unanimous. But to find a mitigating factor, one or more juror can find a mitigating factor. But then, of course, just because there is a mitigating factor, the jury has the opportunity still to deliver a unanimous death sentence. And in this case, there was not unanimity. We don't know how many jurors held out. It honestly could have been one juror who has a principled stance against the death penalty saying, no, he cannot go. He cannot be death penaltied because I will not vote for the death penalty. And that could be it. That could absolutely be what prevented it. I thought for sure that they would actually convict him. But the way it's set up, you have to have a unanimous effort for a death penalty conviction. So there you go. There you go. And NW Backcountry says, I hate the government. Let them kill no one. Generally, yeah, I'm pretty much on that side too these days. I don't really have much faith in the legal system to get it right enough that I'm comfortable with the government killing people. Even if I may think in a particular case they've done enough. I mean, who knows? Who knows what they botched? In this one, it sure looks like Ronnie's guilty. However, there's really some complicating questions about that cop adopting Ronnie's son. Like, to me, and having the kid testify, to me, that alone merits at least no death penalty. Because that's sus. That is sus to me. Naruto Martin says, wouldn't jury selection take out anyone principled against the death penalty? Maybe it would. Maybe it wouldn't. Do I support the wall for pedos? Yes. Yeah, that's not a government thing. That's not a government thing. That's a completely different thing. Remember when people would just say suspect? No, I've never heard of that word. What does it mean? There we go. So that is the current fate of Ronnie O'Neal. He will likely have some appeal happening. He will likely have some appeal happening, but for now, and he's got lots of time to do it because he's in life in prison without the possibility of parole. Texas Red says Ronnie probably did better than the public defender. It's very possible. Very, very possible. All right, should I make people mad now? Should we get to the part where people get mad? I guess there's no real way around it. I've not read this article, but we're going to use it to talk about something else, whether it's in the article or not. We'll talk about something. Derek Chauvin closing in on a federal plea deal, sources tell WCCO. Let's see what they say about this plea deal. I hate this, by the way. I really, really hate this thing. I don't want this ever. Go away. Go away. God damn it. These little floating video windows are the bane of my existence. God, I hate them. It's not an ad. It's not an ad. I have ad block on. It's right here. Look, ad block. Done. Anyway, multiple sources tell WCCO that federal prosecutors are in talks with former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin about a possible plea deal. They say Chauvin is close to reaching a deal, and that is what he was likely referring to when he made a cryptic comment to the family of George Floyd during his sentencing last week. Quote, "Due to legal matters, I'm not able to give a full formal statement. I give my condolences to the Floyd family. There's going to be some other information in the future that will be of interest, and I hope these will give you some peace of mind," Chauvin said prior to his sentencing. Sources suggest Chauvin was likely referring to a plea deal in the federal case against him. As part of a possible plea deal, Chauvin would have to publicly explain what he did to Floyd and why. That was, of course, the question that Floyd's brother poignantly asked of Chauvin at the sentencing. Quote, "We don't want to see no mo slaps on the wrist. We've been through that already," Terrence Floyd said before addressing Chauvin. "What was going through your head when you had your knee on my brother's neck?" Sources tell WCCO that as part of the plea, Chauvin could get a 20 to 25-year sentence, which he would serve at the same time as the same state sentence, that he would serve his time in federal, not state prison. If convicted in federal court, Chauvin could face life in prison. Former Hennepin County Chief Public Mary Moriarty says Chauvin has to be thinking about the swift guilty verdict in the state case, and that may be giving him more incentive to try to negotiate a plea deal. That is because in federal court, there would be a substantial difference between what he would receive if he went to trial and was convicted versus what he would get if he pled guilty, as they say, take responsibility for his actions. It's important to remember an earlier plea deal involving the feds in late May 2020 collapsed at the 11th hour. The U.S. Attorney's Office declined to comment, and WCCO also did not hear back from Ben Crump, the Floyd family attorney, or Eric Nelson, the attorney for Chauvin. During his time at Minneapolis Police, Chauvin was a field training officer. That means he was responsible for training new officers while on patrol. It's a program Minneapolis is now taking a closer look at. The FTOs must exemplify MPD values and must work to transmit those values to new officers, Deputy Chief of Professional Standards Amelia Huffman said. All right, let's talk about what they're not saying. Whoops. Let's talk about what they're not saying here. If Chauvin's going to get 20 to 25 years on a plea deal in Fed court, if he's going to serve the sentences concurrently, there's no reason to get a shorter Fed sentence than a state sentence, right? 22 and a half years state, or he could get his federal sentence served concurrently. Might as well just get 22 and a half years. Unless you are going to appeal your state decision and hope to win, and then win on the federal decision. Chauvin is likely going to take a federal plea deal that agrees that he will not appeal his state conviction. And I'm really, really curious how that is going to make the chat feel. That's what I want to know. How do you guys feel about the fact that Chauvin will quite possibly, maybe even probably, take a federal plea deal that will prevent his ability to appeal his state court decision? And then the other question is, who are you mad at if you are mad about that? So Anlay says, the fact that the judge denied the motion without offering any argumentation, isn't that a boon for defense on appeal? The appellate court won't see the judge's reasons. Not if he doesn't appeal it. Pepsi Man, you don't exactly understand the implications. It means Derek Chauvin cannot appeal for a mistrial. Right now, he's got prosecutorial misconduct. He's got questionable actions from the judge. He's got a juror who lied on his jury form. He's got those things. He's got the Shepard hearing, the fugitive movie case that talks about undue media influence on a prosecution. He's got all these grounds right now for a mistrial. If he takes his Fed plea deal, no mistrial, no appeal, he will serve the time, which means he will be choosing to be guilty. That's the thing that's getting me, because there's a whole bunch of people on the internet protesting for Chauvin's innocence, right? Like there's tons of people saying not guilty and all of that stuff and mistrial, and he's about to just tell them all that not only is he guilty, he's also guilty of the federal civil rights charges, and he's so guilty that he's not going to even fight against what many see as an unjust prosecution. I just think that's interesting. I think that's interesting. How does he benefit by taking the deal? Well, he could face up to life in prison for the federal charges. So instead of facing life in prison, he would do his 22 and a half years. He'd do them in a federal prison versus a state prison, which as a state cop, he may, or a city cop, I guess, he may want to go to a federal prison in a different state or something like that. Fred Blog says, doesn't he also face 20 plus years for alleged tax fraud? Yeah, but even if he's convicted, he's unlikely to receive 20 years of for tax fraud. The tax fraud case, I don't see maximum sentencing possibilities. Sure, 20 years, but for what he did, I don't think so. Do I think he should take that deal? I don't know. Did he do it? Did he decide that depends on how much he wants to fight. I don't know. I don't know that I'd take that deal. I think the feds have a really hard decision, or a really hard case. They have to prove that he did that because Floyd was black. And there hasn't been any evidence of that I've seen. They're bribing him into a fake confession. Not a very strong bribe. What if he backs out later? He can't. I mean, if he takes the plea deal, he takes the plea deal. Roddy, the Fed can't force you to not be able to appeal a state case. That's just going to be a condition of the plea deal. That'd be a condition. He doesn't have to take the plea, or the plea could be for different conditions if he can negotiate them. Because this case has been all about the evidence. Yeah, well, this case was about a lot of evidence that people didn't really like. At the end of the day, you think he will not enter the plea deal? He pled guilty. He tried to plead guilty 3 days after this happened. Everybody seems to forget that Chauvin was going to plead guilty to third-degree murder 3 days after Floyd died. That was his attempt. He attempted to do that. He said, "Yep, I'm guilty of murder. I am going to plead guilty to murder." You didn't know that? Oh, I mean, I talked about it, but not everybody. I forget. Obviously, it's easy for me to remember what I talked about, but I got to remember people don't always see everything I've said. So, can Chauvin switch attorneys to Ronnie? Yes. I'd like to hire my new attorney, Ronnie O'Neill. Yeah, so it's that's an interesting development I wanted to talk about because it's been bandied about a little bit, but getting a 22-year Fed sentence effectively nullifies your right to your appeal anyway. Because let's say, okay, he preserves his right to appeal with his 22.5-year Fed sentence or whatever. He preserves his right to appeal. He goes to the state courts, he appeals and wins, is granted a mistrial. Guess what? Still has his 22.5-year federal sentence that he pled guilty to. And it's not actually based on the underlying conviction at the state level. So he wouldn't be able to get out of that. If he pleads guilty at the Fed level, he's going away for that much time. So it's a pretty... It'll be, I think it's interesting. That's all. I just think it's an interesting conundrum that he's in. I was curious how people would react to it. And I'm surprised it's not mentioned in the article that would effectively nullify any appeal he might make. Okay, well, Nick, let's wrap this up. What, the whole show or just this topic? Okay. All right. What is next? Oh, we've got the Cosby thing. Okay, I wasn't going to pull up a Cosby article. I did a video on this earlier. If you're not aware, Bill Cosby is not guilty. Bill Cosby is not guilty. His conviction was reversed by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. They have undone it. It is not going to, he's done. I think he's already out of prison. His release has been ordered, immediate release, and he cannot be prosecuted. He cannot be prosecuted for the alleged crimes, the alleged sexual assault crimes that he was prosecuted. Well, he was only prosecuted for one of them. He cannot be prosecuted for any of them in the state of Pennsylvania. So he is free and clear forever from that, which is huge news. Huge news. He got released 6 hours after the Supreme Court decision. So I've been trying to, as I had a little bit of time today, trying to follow along with some comments on the Cosby decision because it's really interesting. It's not all that often you get a major reversal like this in a high-profile case a couple years later, and you find out that, oh, by the way, they had agreed not to prosecute him, and that's why he gave those depositions. Because that was always the confusing thing. I never really looked into it. I didn't follow Cosby's case, so I wasn't like following along. But one of the baffling things is, why did Bill Cosby sit down for depositions and give answers that incriminated him and subjected him to criminal liability? Why would he do that in the underlying civil case? Why did he do that? Because that's what did him in. He gave testimony under oath at deposition that led to evidence that was used against him in his criminal trial. And it's a baffling question. Why would you do this? Why you do this? Well, the reason that he did this is because he didn't have an option to make his use his Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate himself. He didn't have the option because the prosecutor said, "We will not charge you. We will not charge you. We're not going to do that." So once the prosecutor does that, and the prosecutor says, "You cannot, or we will not charge you," you now cannot incriminate yourself with those statements because you've effectively been granted freedom from those charges. So he sits down, he gives the statements, he answers honestly, apparently, under oath, and then 10 years later, a different prosecutor comes in and says, "Oh, well, I don't care about that deal. We're going to charge him anyway, and we're going to use those statements that he said, or that we forced out of him." Woo. Wow. Wow. That's an amazing thing. That is a complete, it's a way to deprive someone of their Fifth Amendment right entirely. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. They just took the right away from him. And that is that's something crazy. But what I wanted to talk about, I read this in the let's see. I read this in the short video. But I want to read this again, I think. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. How can they force the statement in deposition? In deposition, you are required to answer all of the questions and you are under oath. That's how. Z-Star says, are agreements between prosecutors, aka the state, and accused basically legal contracts? Yeah. Yeah. And they're not always written down. This one actually wasn't written down. But if criminal prosecution is taken off the table, you cannot invoke your Fifth Amendment right. And they've talked about trying to think of a high-profile case in where this happened. Did they do this to Trump? No, it wasn't Trump. They were doing this to Epstein. They were actually doing this to Epstein in a way. In one district, the district in Florida. In Florida, Epstein was granted immunity from criminal activity in the federal court in Florida. He was granted immunity from in exchange for some testimony. And then this is a little bit different. And then the Southern District of New York said, we don't respect the immunity deal granted by the District of Florida. They gave him immunity. And then they were going to charge him, for the stuff in New York. It's not quite the same as what was happening to Cosby. It's not quite the same as what was happening to Cosby, but it's a similar idea. The problem with that one is Epstein's lawyers didn't actually make sure that the deal would be fully extended to the full federal government. So that's pretty interesting. Rio Hoshi says the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruling apparently explicitly says a contract existed. Yeah, but I don't believe that contract was ever written down. I think it's all based on oral testimony. But we can check. Random 11 says, why wasn't Fifth Amendment issue not caught at lower court? Because they didn't want him to have Fifth Amendment rights. It was right at the height of Me Too. They were getting a big name celebrity and they were nailing him to the wall for his crimes against women. They didn't care about his Fifth Amendment rights. Ellaman 47 says, did you hear that Trump is being indicted and his CFO is due to turn himself in tomorrow? Actually, I heard Trump wasn't likely to be indicted. That was the interesting thing there, is that he wasn't going to be indicted, but maybe some of the people in the Trump organization might be, and the organization itself may be as well. All right, so here we go. This is where I want to go to this. First of all, are Quaaludes Benadryl? Because I always heard Quaaludes with Cosby, but Cosby provided the pills, police with pills which laboratory testing confirmed to be Benadryl. Will Cosby sue for wrongful imprisonment? No. Let's see. Benadryl or Quaaludes? Lawyers jostle over what drugs Bill Cosby gave Andrea Constand. So who knows? He says it was Benadryl. All right, so here we go though. In February 2005, then District Attorney Castor. And if this is pointed out to me by Sakaki Onsai in my Discord today, I didn't even catch it. Bruce Castor. Do you remember Trump had 3 impeachment lawyers? He had Vanderveen, who was great. He had the one lawyer who couldn't practice on the Sabbath. I can't remember his last name. He was a Jewish guy, obviously. And the left was busy making fun of him for covering his head while he drank water, observing his religious practice. That guy. And then he had another attorney, Bruce Castor. Bruce Castor was the terrible one. He was the terrible attorney who gave the worst argument. 1, it was horrendously boring. 2, it was basically irrelevant. And yeah, that's this same guy. That is the district attorney from Pennsylvania at the time, Bruce Castor. So that's a neat little connection that I hadn't put together, but that's him. That's the same guy. In February 2005, then District Attorney Castor reviewed Constand's interviews and Cosby's written answers in order to assess the viability of a prosecution of Cosby. The fact that Constand had failed to promptly file a complaint against Cosby troubled the district attorney. She waited 1 year to file a complaint, roughly, against Cosby, and that rankled Castor. In DA Castor's view, such a delay diminished the reliability of any recollections and undermined the investigators' efforts to collect forensic evidence. Moreover, DA Castor identified a number of inconsistencies in Constand's various statements to investigators. After Cosby provided his written answers, police officers searched his Cheltenham residence and found no evidence that, in their view, could be used to confirm or corroborate Constand's allegations. Following the search of Cosby's home, Constand was interviewed by police again. Castor noted there were inconsistencies in that interview, which further impaired Constand's credibility in his eyes. He also learned that before she contacted the police in Canada, she had contacted civil attorneys in Philadelphia, likely for the purpose of pursuing financial compensation in a lawsuit against Cosby. So he's noticing red flags. He's noticing red flags all over this prosecution. The victim's testimony is inconsistent. The victim seems to be keeping in contact with Cosby, which we're going to get to in a minute. They don't have any physical evidence. Z-Star, maybe. Additionally, according to Castor, Constad's behavior in the years since the alleged assault complicated any effort to secure a conviction against Cosby, as evidenced by the number of telephone calls that she recorded. Constad continued to talk with Cosby on the phone, and she also continued to meet with him in person after the incident. And this just blows me away, because this is the Me Too hallmark. Keep meeting with the man who allegedly sexually assaulted you. Just keep meeting with him and talking to him and hanging out with him and all of that stuff, and ignore the sexual assault until it's time to properly go after him. Then, and only then, are you allowed to go ahead and bring the charges. Castor found these recurring interactions between a complainant and alleged perpetrator to be atypical. Castor also reasoned that the recordings likely were illegal and included discussions that could be interpreted as attempts by Constad and her mother to get Cosby to pay Constad so that she would not contact the authorities. This is called extortion. Totality of these circumstances ultimately led Castor to conclude there was insufficient credible and admissible evidence upon which any charge against Cosby related to the Constad incident could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So then he determines that the criminal trial likely cannot be won, contemplated an alternative course of action that could place Constad on a path to some form of justice. He decided that a civil lawsuit for money damages was their best option, and to aid Constad in that pursuit, as the sovereign, the district attorney decided that his office would not prosecute Cosby, believing that his decision ultimately would then set off a chain of events that he thought, as a minister of justice, would gain some justice for Andrea Constad. By removing the threat of a criminal prosecution, Castor reasoned Cosby would no longer be able, in a civil lawsuit, to invoke his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination for fear that his statements could later be used against him by the Commonwealth. He would later testify this was his intent. Here we go. So this is from Castor. The Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states that a person may not be compelled to give evidence against themselves. So you can't subpoena somebody and make them testify that they did something illegal, or evidence that would lead someone to conclude they did something illegal, on the threat that if you don't answer, you'll be subject to sanctions because you're under subpoena. So the way you remove that from a witness is, if you want to, and what I did in this case, is I made the decision as the sovereign that Mr. Cosby would not be prosecuted no matter what. As a matter of law then, that then made it so that he could not take the Fifth Amendment even as a matter of law, or ever as a matter of law. So I have heard banter in the courtroom and in the press the term agreement, but everybody has used the wrong word. I told Cosby's attorney at the time, Walter Phillips, that I had decided that because of defects in the case, that the case could not be won, and that I was going to make a public statement that we were not going to charge Mr. Cosby. I told him that I was making it as the sovereign Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and in my legal opinion, that meant that Mr. Cosby would not be allowed to take the Fifth Amendment in the subsequent civil suit that Constad's lawyer had told us they wanted to bring. Phillips agreed with me that that is, in fact, the law of Pennsylvania and of the United States, and agreed that if Cosby was subpoenaed, he would be required to testify. But those two things were not connected one to the other. Mr. Cosby was not getting prosecuted at all, ever, as far as I was concerned. And my belief was that, as the Commonwealth and the representative of the sovereign, that I had the power to make such a statement, and that by doing so, as a matter of law, Mr. Cosby would be unable to assert the Fifth Amendment in a civil deposition. Phillips, a lawyer vastly more experienced even than me, and I had 20 years on the job by that point, agreed with my legal assessment, and he said that he would communicate that to the lawyers who were representing Cosby in the pending civil suit. So that's Castor even saying this. That's Castor saying it. This is what I planned to do. This is what I wanted to do. This is how it was. This is how it worked out. Hey, what up, Joe? Good logic in the chat. I need to call you and chat. Calling his thought process at the time, the former district attorney further emphasized that it was absolutely his intent to remove for all time the possibility of prosecution. Consistent with his discussion with Attorney Phillips, Castor issued another press release, this time informing the public that he had decided not to prosecute Cosby. The press release stated in full, Montgomery County District Attorney Bruce L. Castor Jr. has announced that a joint investigation by his office and the Cheltenham Township Police Department into allegations against actor and comic Bill Cosby is concluded. Cosby maintains a residence in Cheltenham Township, Montgomery County. A 31-year-old female, a former employee of the athletic department at Temple University, complained to detectives that Cosby touched her inappropriately during a visit to his home in January of 2004. Can I say something here? This is something that we see, I'm seeing a lot of in the Me Too cases, is that these guys aren't accused of having sex with women, just like touching them. Like touching their genitals or something or whatever, groping them. Is that like a thing? Is that a thing? Like guys are just out here like, oh, I'm all hands though? Like it's weird. It's weird to me because I would think, now I'm not a sexual assaulter, so I don't know. I don't get into the mindset very well. But I would think that the end goal would be intercourse. That would be the thing. Like if your object is to knock out a woman for sexual gratification, that the intercourse would be the gratification, not some touchy stuff. It's weird to me. It's weird to me. Like it just seems like halfway to the point, you know? Okay. The women reported the allegation to police in her native Canada on January 13th, 2005. So a whole year passes. Canadian authorities in turn referred the complaint to Philly police. Everyone involved in this matter cooperated with investigators, including the complainant and Mr. Cosby. Level of cooperation has helped the investigation proceed smoothly and efficiently. DA commends all parties. Viewed the statements, blah, 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 blah. The detectives could find no instance in Mr. Cosby's past where anyone complained to law enforcement of conduct which would constitute a criminal offense. Insufficient, credible, and admissible evidence exists upon which any charge against Mr. Cosby could be sustained beyond a reasonable doubt. Making this finding, the district attorney has analyzed the facts in relation to the elements of any applicable offenses, including whether Mr. Cosby possessed the requisite criminal intent. In addition, DA Castor applied the rules of evidence governing whether or not evidence is admissible. This is amazing because Castor applied the correct rules of evidence. The trial court applied the incorrect rules of evidence. That's the beauty of this whole thing. The other women should not have been allowed to testify against Bill Cosby. It's against the rules of evidence. Rule 404. You cannot just assault someone's character. You cannot have inadmissible character evidence of a prior bad act to prove a present bad act, even if the prior bad act is true. But they just let it go. They let them bring up 4 women who were not involved in the alleged criminal activity in any way to talk about separate allegations that were unproven, just testified to at trial as if they were fact. And that is something that should not have been done. The same thing was actually done to Harvey Weinstein. And it's possible that Weinstein could appeal on similar grounds as that and have that overturned. But that has just become a hallmark of Me Too. That has become a hallmark of the whole movement, is just by implication, an unverifiable accusation makes someone seem guilty by volume or number of the accusations. All right, real quick. After this analysis, DA concludes that a conviction under the circumstances of this case would be unattainable. As such, declines to authorize the filing of criminal charges in connection with this matter. Because a similar civil action with a much lower standard of proof is possible, the district attorney renders no opinion concerning the credibility of any party involved so as not to contribute to the publicity and taint prospective jurors. District attorney does not intend to expound publicly on the details of his decision for fear that his opinions and analysis might be given undue weight by jurors in a contemplated civil action. District Attorney Castor cautions all parties to this matter that he will reconsider this decision should the need arise. Much exists in this investigation that could be used by others to portray persons on both sides of this issue in a less than flattering light. DA encourages the parties to resolve their dispute from this point forward with a minimum of rhetoric. So, to be fair, Castor's statement does have some ambiguity here. Should the need arise, he can revisit it. However, that need arising would likely involve Mr. Cosby not cooperating with the civil depositions or attempting to plead the Fifth Amendment or something like that. Castor did not communicate to Constead or her counsel his decision to permanently forego prosecuting Cosby. In fact, Constead did not learn of the decision until a reporter appeared at one of her civil attorney's officers later that evening. With the resolution of her allegations removed from the criminal courts, Constead turned to the civil realm. Okay. Less than 1 month after the press release, she filed a lawsuit against Cosby. So then there's the depositions and all of that. We're not going to go through that here. Settling the civil suit for $3.38 million. However, following a media request, the federal judge who presided over the civil suit unsealed the records in 2015. So the records were sealed. And then it was unsealed in 2015. By that point, Castor had moved on from the district attorney's office and was serving as a Montgomery County commissioner. He was succeeded as district attorney by his former first assistant, Risa Vetri Furman Esquire. Despite her predecessor's decision not to prosecute Cosby upon release of the civil records, District Attorney Furman reopened the criminal investigation of Constead's allegations. Then First Assistant District Attorney Kevin R. Steele was present during the initial stages of the newly revived investigation, participated in early discussions with Cosby's new lawyers, Brian McMonigal and Patrick J. O'Connor. On September 23rd, 2015, upon learning that DA Furman had reopened the case, former DA Castor sent her an email to which he attached his February 17th press release stating the following. So here we go. I want to read this and then we'll go to page 35 like Joe suggested. Dear Risa, Lisa would be, so Risa, I certainly know better than to believe what I read in the newspaper, and I have witnessed firsthand your legal acumen, so you almost certainly know this already. I'm writing to you just in case you might have forgotten what we did with Cosby back in 2005. Attached is my opinion from then. Once we decided that the chances of prevailing in a criminal case were too remote to make an arrest, I concluded that the best way to achieve justice was to create an atmosphere where Constead would have the best chance of prevailing in a civil suit against Cosby. With the agreement of Attorney Phillips and Constead's lawyers, I wrote the attached as the only comment I would make while the civil case is pending. Again, with the agreement of the defense lawyer and Constead's lawyers, I intentionally and specifically bound the Commonwealth that there would be no state prosecution of Cosby in order to remove him from the ability to claim his Fifth Amendment protection against self-incrimination, thus forcing him to sit for a deposition under oath. Attorney Phillips was speaking for Cosby's side at the time, but he was in contact with Cosby's civil lawyers, who did not deal with me directly that I recall. I only discovered today that Attorney Phillips had died, but those lawyers representing Constead civilly, whose names I did not remember until I saw them in recent media accounts, were part of this agreement because they wanted to make Cosby testify. I believed at the time that they thought making him testify would solidify their civil case, but the only way to do that was for us to promise not to prosecute him. So in effect, that is what I did. I never made an important decision without discussing it with you during your tenure as first assistant. Knowing the above, I can see no possibility that Cosby's deposition could be used in a state criminal case because I would have to testify as to what happened and the deposition would be subject to suppression. I cannot believe any state judge would allow that deposition into evidence. Oh, Castor, you sweet summer child. Of course they will. Of course they will. Because it's the Me Too era. nor anything derived therefrom. In fact, that was the specific intent of all parties involved, including the Commonwealth and the plaintiff's lawyers. Knowing this, unless you can make out a case without that deposition and without anything the deposition led to, I think Cosby would have an action against the county and maybe even against you personally. That is why I publicly suggested looking for lies in the deposition as an alternative now that we have learned of all these other victims we did not know about at the time we had made the go, no-go decision on arresting Cosby. I publicly suggested that the DA in California might try a common plan scheme or design case using Consted's case as part of the res geste in their case, because I knew Montgomery County could not prosecute Cosby for a sexual offense if the deposition was needed to do so. But I thought the DA in California might have a shot because I would not have the power to bind another state's prosecutor. Some of this, of course, is my opinion, and using Cosby's deposition in the California case might be a stretch. Yeah, it actually might be a stretch. But one thing is fact. The Commonwealth defense and civil plaintiff lawyers were all in agreement that the attached decision from me stripped Cosby of the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, forcing him to be deposed. That led to Cosby paying Consted a lot of money, a large percentage of which went to her lawyers on a contingent fee basis. In my opinion, those facts will render Cosby's deposition inadmissible in any prosecution in Montgomery County for the incident that occurred in January 2004. Bruce. Now, he should have been right. He should have been right. Oh, jeez. Replying by letter, Furman asserted that despite the public press release, this was the first she had learned about binding understanding between the Commonwealth and Cosby. She requested a copy of any written agreement not to prosecute it. Castor replied, the press release is the written determination, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to read through that. Here we go. The attached, which was on letterhead and signed by me as a district attorney, the concept approved by Consted's lawyers, was a written declaration from the attorney for the Commonwealth. There would be no prosecution based on anything Cosby said in the civil action. Naturally, if a prosecution can be made out without using what Cosby said or anything derived from what Cosby said, I believe then and continue to believe that a prosecution is not precluded. So she went ahead with it anyway. On January 2016, nearly a decade after the release, decision not to prosecute Cosby, Commonwealth charged Cosby with 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault stemming from the incident with Consted. On January 16th, they filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus seeking dismissal of the charges based on the former DA's purported promise made in his representative capacity on behalf of the Commonwealth that he could not be prosecuted. They filed a response to the motion to which Cosby replied. So that's just great. Castor's even telling her. Castor is even telling her, you can't do this. Can't do this. Trial court conducted hearings on Cosby's habeas petition, which it ultimately denied. Trial court explained that the only conclusion that was apparent from the record was that no agreement or promise not to prosecute ever existed, and only the exercise of prosecutorial discretion. In support of that conclusion, the trial court provided a lengthy summary of what it found to be the pertinent facts developed at the habeas hearing. Because our analysis in this case focuses on the trial court's interpretation of those testimonies, we reproduce that court synopsis here. I'm not going to go through that. Notably, when District Attorney Castor decided not to prosecute Cosby, he absolutely intended to remove for all time the possibility of prosecution, because the ability to take the Fifth Amendment is also for all time removed. The trial court sought clarification from Castor about his statement in his second email to DA Furman that he still believed that a prosecution was permissible as long as Cosby's depositions were not used in such proceedings. Castor explained to the court that he meant that a prosecution may be available only if other victims were discovered, with charges related only to those victims, and without the use of Cosby's deposition and Consted matter. Specifically, Castor stated that what he was trying to convey to Ms. Furman was that his binding of the Commonwealth not to prosecute Cosby was not for any crime in Montgomery County for all time. It was only for the sexual assault crimes in the Consted case. He continued, so if they had evidence that some of those other women had been sexually assaulted, then I thought they could go ahead with the prosecution of the other cases with some other victim. Trial court denied the motion. finding that DA Castor never in fact reached an agreement with Cosby. He's testifying to the agreement. Yes, I did. The agreement is to his detriment as a prosecutor and representative of the Commonwealth. And he's testifying to it, and they're like, yeah, but nah, you didn't, though. Is amazing. It's amazing. Instead, trial court considered the interaction between the former district attorney and Cosby to be an incomplete and unauthorized contemplation of transactional immunity. All right. So that's what's going on here. Mr. Castor's testimony about what he did and how he did it was equivocal at best. Okay. Court deemed the former district attorney's characterization of his decision-making and intent to be inconsistent inasmuch as he testified at times that he intended transactional immunity while asserting at other times that he intended to use the derivative use immunity. Trial court specifically credited Attorney Troiani's statements that she never requested that Cosby be provided with immunity and that she did not specifically agree to any such offer. It wasn't an offer of immunity. Can Cosby sue this chick or something? I mean, in theory, yeah, but I don't think you'll get anywhere. Let's see. Here we go. Let's get to here's the testimony of the different women. Let's see. Joe says page 35. Wait, we'll go here. The trial court rejected Cosby's arguments that the introduction of testimonies from the 5 prior bad acts witnesses violated his due process rights, and that the incidents were too remote in time and too dissimilar to have probative value, let alone probative value sufficient to overcome the unduly prejudicial impact of such evidence. The court noted that prior bad acts evidence generally cannot be used to establish a criminal propensity or to prove that the defendant acted in conformity with the past acts, but that such evidence can be used to show motive, opportunity, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, identity, or absence of mistake or accident, so long as the probative value of the evidence outweighs its prejudicial effect. Now, what you use this for, what prior bad acts testimony is supposed to be used for, is, okay, you know how allegedly, I don't know anything about this, but in movies, if a surgeon, their suture, right, how they do stitches is apparently very distinctive. And you can actually identify a person by their sutures, allegedly, in movie land. I don't care if it's real or not. In movie land, their use of a suture is unique enough to identify someone. So if you have a bunch of mysterious murders, and you have this new murder that you're prosecuting against someone, and they use the same suture pattern, you can testify that these prior murders all had the same suture pattern, for example, to try and identify that. And then you could bring up other evidence about the suture pattern being used elsewhere or whatever. That's what a thing is. If you have a bank robber who uses a particular tactic, the same thing, a call sign. Oh, if you have the wet bandits, right? If you have the wet bandits from Home Alone, and you show that these guys were caught burgling before, and what they would do is they would flood the sinks to leave a call sign. Those are the types of things that you use prior bad acts testimony for, to show that it's indeed them based on knowledge of these other things. Right, they became the sticky bandits. El DeGusto, Nick, why are murderers suturing people? Watch the movie Pieces and get back to me, brother. All right, so that's what it's supposed to be for. It's not supposed to be like, Mr. Cosby harmed me over and over and over again, and this woman, and this woman, and this woman. Therefore, he definitely harmed this other woman. Even if he harmed the other 5 women, that doesn't mean he did anything to the new victim. The court then determined that the testimony of the 5 prior bad act witnesses and the deposition testimony pertaining to the prior use of quaaludes was admissible to demonstrate Cosby's common plan, scheme, or design. The trial court reasoned that the similarity and distinctiveness of the crimes bore a logical connection to Constand's allegations and amounted to a signature of the same predator. Yeah, Cosby's the first guy to think of giving a woman pills and then taking advantage of her. I'm pretty sure I didn't see that happen in Varsity Blues. Right? Tweeter? You guys remember Varsity Blues? You give them 2 Percocet, 2 Vicodin, and the panties drop. Cosby figured it out, though. No one before him could have figured it out. Just Varsity Blues and Bill Cosby. So let's see. Comparing the past and present allegations, the court noted that each woman was substantially younger than Cosby and physically fit. So he wasn't into fat chicks. Got it. Cosby initiated the contact with each woman primarily through her employment. Each woman came to trust Cosby and view him as a friend or mentor. Each woman accepted an invitation to a place that Cosby controlled. Each woman consumed a drink or a pill, often at Cosby's insistence. Each woman became incapacitated and unable to consent to sexual contact. Why are you taking pills from somebody? No, I insist that you take these pills. Yeah, no, buddy. Sorry. I don't want to be diddled. Who's taking these pills, man? And that Cosby sexually assaulted each woman while each was under the influence of the intoxicant. These chilling similarities, the court explained, rendered Cosby's actions so distinctive as to become a signature, and therefore the evidence was admissible to demonstrate a common plan, scheme, or design. Court further determined that the prior bad acts evidence was admissible to demonstrate that Cosby's actions were not the result of mistake or accident. The court relied in part on the then Chief Justice Saylor's concurrence in Commonwealth v. Hicks, which suggested the doctrine of chances as another theory of logical relevance that does not depend on an impermissible inference of bad character, and which is most generally suited to disproof of accident or mistake. Trial court reasoned that the purpose of the evidence was not to demonstrate that Cosby behaved in conformity with a criminal propensity, but rather to establish the objective improbability of so many accidents befalling the defendant, or the defendant becoming innocently enmeshed in suspicious circumstances so frequently. Court noted that there was no dispute that a sexual encounter between Cosby and Constad had occurred. Contested issue was Constad's consent. Prior bad acts evidence, therefore, was relevant to show a lack of mistake, namely that Cosby could not have possibly believed that Constad consented to the digital penetration, as well as his intent in administering an intoxicant. Similarly, with regard to the doctrine of chances, the court opined that the fact that 19 women were proffered as Rule 404B witnesses lends to the conclusion that Cosby found himself in this situation more frequently than the general population. This is exactly the point of 404B. I can't believe they actually wrote this out, because this is what 404B is intended specifically to ignore or to get away from. They proved in their own opinion that they shouldn't have done this. Accordingly, the fact that numerous other women recounted the same or similar story further supports the admissibility of this evidence under the doctrine of chances. I know it's the opposite. The trial court recognized that the alleged assaults upon the prior bad acts witnesses were remote in time, but it explained that remoteness is but one factor that the court should consider. Court reasoned that the distance in time between the prior bad acts and the incidents involving Constad was inversely proportional to the similarity of the other crimes or acts. Stated more simply, the more similar the crimes, the less significant length of time that has passed. The court noted that while there was significant temporal gap between the prior incidents in Constad's case, the alleged assaults involving the prior bad acts witnesses occurred relatively close in time to each other. Thus, when taken together, the court explained the sequential nature of the acts, coupled with their nearly identical similarities, renders the lapse of time unimportant. Okay, on to the analysis. Wait, no, they're still going on. I want to see what the court says about this. Let's see. Cosby timely filed notice of appeal, prompting the trial court to order him to file a concise statement of errors. Unanimous panel of the Superior Court affirmed the judgment of the sentence in all respects. Superior Court began blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Are they going to talk about their in turn? Let's see. I want to hear their thing. I want to hear their opinions on this. Talking about what all the other courts did. Issues. Oh my gosh. So that was all the factual matter. Let's see on the issues. So we have the analysis. If he is correct that the Commonwealth was precluded from prosecuting him, then the question of whether the prior bad act testimony will become moot. I want to see what they say about that. We know what they decided on the one thing. Briefly address it. Let's see. Contract law. Come on, where is it? Where is it? Our inquiry is not in there. Oh, come on, end it there. I just want to get to the next section. I want to see what they say about the witnesses. That's what's interesting to me. There's a lot of contract law in this case. Is that it? Do they not? The impact of the due process violations here is vast. The remedy must match that impact. Starting with DA Castor's inducement, Cosby gave up a fundamental constitutional right, was compelled to participate in a civil case after losing that right, testified against his own interests, weakened his position there, and ultimately settled the case for a large sum of money. Was tried twice in criminal court, was convicted, and has served several years in prison. All of this started with DA Castor's compulsion of Cosby's reliance upon a public proclamation that Cosby would not be prosecuted. The CDO's remedy for all of this would include subjecting Cosby to a third criminal trial. That is no remedy at all. Rather, is an approach that would place Cosby nowhere near where he was before the due process violation took root. There's only one remedy that can completely restore Cosby to the status quo ante. He must be discharged, and any future prosecution on these particular charges must be barred. We do not dispute that this remedy is both severe and rare, but is warranted here, indeed compelled. So they're not going to go... Let's see. They're not going to talk about the... They're really not going to talk about the testimony. That's too bad. They just mention it. Page 55. Let's see. Prosecutor and criminal defendant. Contract law. Plea agreements made by prosecutors. Yeah, I don't see anything here. Are you sure it's page 55? Well, this is getting really boring, but I don't see anything here about that. Yeah, they don't address the character witnesses. They don't, Ryo. I'm looking at it. This is page 55. They don't address the character witnesses at all. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. So I was hoping they would address that. They don't. Good. Okay. Okay, let's get to there was one other story I have on the thing. Oh, what do you guys think about this? This is completely separate. This is kind of a bombshell. Lin Wood accused of leaving Kyle Rittenhouse in jail to raise money. Controversial attorney Lin Wood has been accused of keeping Kyle Rittenhouse in jail, who is accused of murder, in jail in order to raise money. Wendy Rittenhouse hid out at Trump loyalist Wood, whom she accused of keeping her son Kyle in jail in order to raise funds, according to the New Yorker. The report claimed that Woods' #FightBack campaign, which had been established to raise funds for Rittenhouse and other defendants, reached the $2 million bail mark weeks before the figure was set at a Kenosha County court in November. Wood is arguably best known today as being an influential figure in the QAnon conspiracy theory who believes the 2020 election, blah, 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 blah. Don't want to talk about that. According to the New Yorker, Wood used the Fight Back campaign to define Rittenhouse as a political prisoner and make his legal case a cultural battle. During an interview with Law and Crime's Objections podcast in March, Wendy Rittenhouse said of Wood and of right-wing activist and civil lawyer John Pierce, whom Kyle Rittenhouse fired in February, of failing to defend her son and using him to make money. She said, they used Kyle to gain money, gain Twitter followers. I felt now they didn't care about Kyle. According to the New Yorker, Wood called the notion of keeping Rittenhouse in jail in order to raise funds blatantly false. But let's get to what let's get to what happened next. Wendy also said in the Objections podcast that Wood believed Rittenhouse would be safer in an Illinois youth facility as he believed Armageddon was approaching. She added, quote, he told me that my son would be safe in jail because he thought that on the night of the election that there was going to be Armageddon going to happen and Kyle was safer in jail. I told Lynn, I want my son home. He needs to be home with his family. He needs to be home with his mom and his two sisters. And he goes, he's safer there. Kyle Rittenhouse was later released from detention on November 20th after the $2 million bail had been raised through the Fight Back campaign. The then 17-year-old from Antioch, Illinois, was arrested after 3 people were shot in Kenosha. Wood had originally represented Rittenhouse in the criminal trial, although he has now parted with the family. Attorney Mark Richards will now represent the teenager when his case goes to trial later this year. Rittenhouse's trial is set to begin on November 1st. He is charged with first-degree reckless homicide, 2 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety, first-degree intentional homicide, attempted first-degree homicide, and possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18. Teenager who will be tried as an adult has pleaded not guilty to all charges put against him. So, big bombshell accusation coming from Kyle Rittenhouse's mom. Barnes was raising a ton of suspicion around Lin Wood and in particular around John Pierce early on. Barnes, of course, is now representing the Rittenhouse family, I think in regards to the management of the financial trust and fundraising. If this is true, that's a pretty big bombshell. The interesting line here is this he believed Armageddon was approaching sort of line. Like he's going to be safer in jail because the end of the world is coming. Yeah, apparently I think maybe Lin Wood has lost it. I think maybe Wood has lost it. Good logic. What are you debating? Are you debating Barnes about the United States support of Israel? Let's see. Wood had made statements indicating he did not wish to defend Rittenhouse, but to simply drain the GoFundMe. Damn. Renegade says he had to have it first. No, Lin Wood at least at one point in time was quite a good lawyer. I mean, I say at least because he may still be. I don't know. His cases against the government weren't great. Blaine 20 says there's nothing wrong with Lin. Maybe. Good Logic says, oh, you think people are making way too much of the Giuliani suspension? Yeah, you're on the side of Nate, the lawyer there. I don't really know. I heard that the rules in New York are basically really, really strict on what you can and can't say, even when furthering a client's case. So that basically if Giuliani had made the same statements in a different jurisdiction, like in Minnesota or somewhere else, then he'd be fine. But because of New York, who knows? But we'll see. We'll see. Again, I think Rudy's license should maybe be in jeopardy because of that god-awful oral argument he gave in the Pennsylvania election case. I think that, like, forget anything else that he did. Like, that oral argument was just so bad that it's like, oh, Rudy, buddy, no, get out. Blaine 20 says, what do you call it when everyone hates you and tries to make you look crazy? Going after the election turned people on both sides against him. It wasn't going after the election that made me think Lin might be losing it. That I don't mind that he did that. I'm all for a rigorous examination of the election process through whatever means are available, including the courts. It was some other statements that he made, and not just the statements, but the wisdom of making those statements. But that's just me. Like I said, I don't know the guy. I have no idea. But if the accusations from the Rittenhouse family, you know, they were not happy with Lin Wood's representation. They were not happy with it at all. And that's an interesting thing to me. Let's see. Okay. The last little story I have. The last little story I have is this. This is an interesting outcome. This is a very, very interesting outcome from the Supreme Court. Supreme Court declines to stop federal moratorium on evictions. So if you don't know this, oh, and by the way, we're like 22 likes away. We're 22 likes away from 1,000 likes. Make sure you go ahead and hit like on the stream. And if we get to 1,000, I'll take a customary shot, as always. And then after this show, we're going to go to Twitch and watch a movie. And I'm pretty sure the new movies are up. If the new movies are up, we are watching Snatch. We are watching Snatch if the new movies are up. If they're not up, we'll watch something else. Supreme Court declines to stop federal moratorium on evictions. So the housing secretary just decided that that no one can be kicked out of their home, whether they're paying rent or not. They just decided this back in the pandemic. It's supposed to expire in July. It went to the Supreme Court and they said, yeah, the housing secretary doesn't have the power to prevent evictions for people not paying their rent. And this, of course, was a big sin. No, that's not that movie. That's Basic Instinct. If Basic Instinct was on there, we would watch it. That's actually a good movie. They said, wait, you can't just decide to freeze the rental market. You can't do that. That's going to cause problems because the landlords have mortgages. They rely on that income. And if people aren't paying it, they need to get those people out and get other people in. So this is a thing, but the Supreme Court declined to stop it. So they're allowing it to continue. So a temporary moratorium on evictions, which now expires in July, was imposed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday declined to end the federal government's temporary ban on evictions, which is now scheduled to expire in July. The High Court ruled 5-4. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote that he thought the ban was illegal, but he noted that it is scheduled to expire soon. To me, this is baffling. So Kavanaugh joins Roberts and the three liberals. Kavanaugh's the swing vote on this one. He joins Roberts and the three liberals, and he says, ban's illegal, but you know what? It's going to end soon, so let's just leave it there. Wait. It's illegal. They didn't have the power to do it. But you know what? Who cares? Let's just let them do this unlawful order. Hey, Kavanaugh. I'm so low in the frame, it's bothering me. Kavanaugh, pal, buddy, bubby, what are you doing? If it's illegal, call it illegal. Otherwise, they'll do it again. What the fuck is this? What is this? When did we get to this place where we're just like, you know what? Whatever. Just, it's going to end. Why do we want to call it unconstitutional? The moratorium on evictions is put in place due to the financial hardship of the COVID-19 pandemic. CDC issued a nationwide eviction moratorium last year due to the pandemic. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky said in a statement at that time that the pandemic has presented historical challenges and that keeping people in their homes and out of crowded settings like shelters will help stop the spread of the virus. Biden administration earlier this month extended the moratorium through the end of July. CDC has said that extension was intended to be the last. Doesn't mean it will be. Doesn't mean it will be, though. The U.S. District Court judge in May ruled that the CDC exceeded its authority, but the judge put his order on hold. Supreme Court on Tuesday declined to lift that hold. Kavanaugh wrote in a brief order that he agreed that the CDC exceeded its authority in issuing a nationwide eviction moratorium. Kavanaugh wrote that the CDC plans to end it in a few weeks, and that those weeks will allow for the distribution of rental assistance funds that have been approved by Congress. Kavanaugh wrote that he believes Congress would need to act through legislation if the CDC planned to extend it past July 31st. Why? Why do you believe that? So if the CDC just goes ahead and does another illegal extension, then Congress will have to legislate? And what, Biden's going to approve it? It's his CDC. What the fuck is he thinking? Kavanaugh concurred with the decision that kept the moratorium in place. joining Justices Sotomayor, Breyer, Kagan, and John Roberts. Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett would have granted the application to remove the stay, which would have stopped the moratorium according to the brief order. CDC put the prohibition on evicting renters in place in September. After President Joe Biden took office in January, it was extended through the end of March, extended again through the end of June, and then on Thursday extended until July 31st. By the end of March, 6.4 American households were behind on their rent, according to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. As of June 7th, roughly 3.2 million people in the U.S. said they faced eviction in the next 2 months, according to the U.S. Census Bureau Household Pulse Survey. So there you go. That's This just blew my mind. Let's see. Let's see. Here's Kavanaugh's opinion. It's one page, so let's read it real quick. I agree with the district court and the applicants that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention exceeded its existing statutory authority by issuing a nationwide eviction moratorium. Because the CDC plans to end the moratorium in only a few weeks on July 31st, and because those few weeks will allow for additional and more orderly distribution of the congressionally appropriated rental assistance funds, I voted this time to deny the application to vacate the district court's stay of its order. See Barnes versus E-Systems, Inc. In my view, clear and specific congressional authorization via new legislation would be necessary for the CDC to extend the moratorium past July 31st. Why? What's your citation? This is amazing. He just decided that Congress would have to act to extend it. Congress didn't act to extend it in the first place. Or the other two extensions. Why would they need to act again? Or why would they need to act on this time? It doesn't make any sense. We live in weird times, y'all. Weird times. But, okay. Well, I guess I will go ahead and read out the super chats and we will end the show and we will go over to Twitch if you want to. Only if you want to, though. I think we'll have a fun time over there. Snatch is allegedly up on Twitch, so that's what we will be watching. It'll be a fun time. We might get to a second movie tonight. I'm not sure. Mario Carter 13. No, The Dragon's Treasure. It says, everyone, free Britney. Government, all right. Here's Bill Cosby. Mario Carter 13 says, I always chuckle to myself when I remember notable fat women Meghan Trainor and her last hit song, If I Was You, I'd Want to Be Me Too. Okay. Bill Cosby says, hey. Kool-Aid Man says, oh yeah. So Nick, I met up with Bill Cosby. And we celebrated by filling my pitcher up with Jell-O, having ladies with big, luscious yammers wrestle for our entertainment. And then we got an 8-ball, hit up the local titty bars, and showered them with our Jell-O pops. Okay. Disgusting. Thank you for that. Next. We've got Wick Dipper says, your Ridge wallet will be at least 37% cleaner if you use warm soapy water on it. Not true. Long Reach Jones says, random off-topic thing. How big of a no-no is it to make a card game that includes real people? Asking for a friend who wishes to help Alex Jones defend against invasion of gay frogs Hashtag not legal advice. It kind of depends if your game is meant to be parody or to look like endorsement. The easiest thing to do is just literally change the names a little bit, but in a way that people would recognize. That's what most places do. Peeing in gaping buttholes. Welcome to the channel. Thank you. Glad to have you as a member. Very proud to have peeing in gaping buttholes as a member of the channel. CJ says, shame on that judge for calling Mack an actor. Unless it's now Al Mack. In that case, shame on the judge for dead naming him. Uriah Wright says she deserves more 8 years in prison than more years in prison than Bill Cosby. Kiwi Goes Live says, I mean, if you don't want to see Gene Simmons in drag seduce John Stamos, I can just ask Amazon to cancel the order. Oh, God. Juan Cena says, discussions of Collateral for a woman empowerment group would have been my first indication of funny business, to be honest. 200 watts. For me, it's like, we're going to need nudes. Yeah, okay. No, you don't. That's cool. I'm out of there. 200 Watt Studio says, I just want to say that if any woman I start to date turns out to have a Nexium brand, I will be fine with it. Not Applicable says, so did she suck this judge's anti-peen? I don't know. 200 Watt Studio says, in 2 years, please invite Mac to Anime Matsuri. I'm not the inviter. 200 Watt Studio says, come on, Nick. Nexium is just a self-help group like Dale Carnegie, but with more sex. The Knowledge says, Nick, I believe a group of whales is called a pod. Not Applicable says, I bet that bailiff was sweating his butthole. TJ says, thank you. Turn off the effing phone. Why is that such a hard concept for people? It's not that difficult. What the fuck is wrong with people? Exactly. Not Applicable says, if Obama had a son, he'd look like Ronnie the Third. Random username 9284051 says, Thaddeus Russell supported 12-year-old and 40-year-old hookups on Twitter today. It's a problem. Wait, what? I'm sorry. What? Who's Thaddeus Russell? And how many cinder blocks do we need to build that wall? What the fuck are you talking about? Fo Chung Esquire says, if he chooses to be guilty, what's the problem? Not a problem for me. There's just a lot of people championing Chauvin's cause. I thought that would be pretty interesting. Who the hell is Thaddeus Russell? Sword and Scale says he's right about him. Who is Thaddeus Russell? Thaddeus Russell? Founder of Renegade University, host of the Unregistered Podcast, author of A Renegade History of the United States. All right. I'm calling an audible. This is something that needs to be looked at. So here's Thaddeus Russell. He's retweeting this person. Willfully ignorant assholes. Hold on. We're going to get... Okay, he's tweeting a bunch of stuff. But he's retweeting this. Unpopular opinion thread from August of 2020. I was abused as a kid and have children. I hate child predation. I believe those accused of abusing kids have the same rights as anyone to a fair trial. Yeah, okay. People that have those urges but don't act on them are actually morally courageous and should be pitied and studied. If those of them that don't act on their impulses are threatened with wood chippers, we will never learn anything about the causes and the solutions. What if wood chippers are the solution, though? Just a counterpoint to consider. Fucking a 6-year-old and fucking a 17-year-old are very different things. Yes, in a lot of states, having sex with a 17-year-old is actually legal. So you're right. They are very, very different things. Actually, in maybe the majority of states, having sex with a 17-year-old is actually legal. So they are very, very different things. And even in the states where they're both illegal, the punishment for them is vastly, vastly different. Yes. Okay, what's your point? Racism on the left and pedos on the right are very similar things. Actually, they're not. Actually, they're not very similar at all. Oh. Okay. All right. These aren't even close to similar. Performative virtue signaling. There are any really I says aren't, I guess, any really that many of either. And virtually, there seems to be a lot of pedos, actually. Virtually everyone in our society already agrees they are immoral. Decrying them doesn't make you special. No, it just makes you correct. 4B, I should be allowed to say I'm not attracted to kids, but this shit is kind of retarded, just like I should be allowed to say I'm not racist, but this shit is retarded. Fake kitty porn shouldn't necessarily be allowed to flourish, but may actually reduce the number of kids abused in the long run and should be studied further. If it's my kids, yes, I would probably immediately kill them. I'm just saying that society shouldn't work that way. I believe that much of the child pornography isn't actually consumed by real pedophiles. Oh! Do you now? What do you base this weird belief on? But porn addicts who are addicted to more and more extreme version of pornography after their sexual senses being dulled and dulled over time. The exotic becomes the erotic. I've heard this argument unironically from a pedophile. Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And by the way, that guy who I interviewed on this show said he needs to be kept in check, that he needs someone to keep him in check, that he needs someone to keep him safe from offending on minors, that he needs the help. But he said that this was kind of like how he got to his stage, but he does not suggest that he's not somehow dangerous to children. You're wrong. You're wrong on this one. They don't necessarily view it because they want to harm children, but because the more taboo the porn, the more excited they get. Again, making this up. Just literally making it up. P.S. Not super enthused about 11-year-olds twerking. Okay. Good. At least you got one thing right. So here's what I think this is where it's coming from, right? Is this what it is? Breck says, heard more than one person say they were not gay, they were just bored. That's just gay. It's just gay. Is this what he's talking about? Does anybody know how many? Does he have some replies here? I'm trying to figure out. Authoritarian imperialist. What is this guy? Is this the hill she's going on? Shusty Rackleford. Why should I tell my ex-wife who had a 3-year relationship with her high school teacher beginning when she was 15? She's fortunate it turned out that way, but her experience doesn't negate the risks that adults... That the relationship was wrong and the guy took advantage of her. What the fuck is wrong with you? It's not her fault. She's a victim. See Ian Miles Chong's response? Do I want to do that? What does Chungus have to say? Let me find Ian Miles Chong. These people tweet a lot. Damn it. Where's the Oh, here. I guess you guys can see Chungus's wall here. I'm looking for... Okay, here we go. In what world is an adult taking advantage of a still developing child ethical? It depends, of course, but I've known many people, women and men, who had sex with adults when they were 13 never regretted it. Should the adults in those situations be locked up? Yes. Next question. Next question. Do you need me to repeat it? Yes. Do they need to be locked up? Yes. Yep. 100%. Why is that a question here? Okay, so there's I'm guessing he doesn't reply here. In this, I'm just scrolling through to see if he has a reply, but I don't see one. But yeah, the answer is yes. They should be. I'm sorry. I thought this is America. Want some context? There's an article by Thaddeus Russell about Polanski on the Daily Beast from 2017. No, I'm not a big fan. I just don't get why this is a hard question. Yeah, if you have sex with a 13-year-old as an adult, I'm sorry, you need to be locked up. You do. You do. I don't I can't imagine an instance where that is an okay encounter. But that's me, I guess. Maybe I'm the weirdo. All right, back to these super chats. Sorry. We got that's a Fo Chung Esquire says if he chooses to be guilty, what's the problem? Super Iron Bob says the power of the state to compel pleas getting abused and prosecutors protecting prosecutors. Surprise, surprise. Cal Clay says, hey, Nick, did you get the book yet? Or track number email? No. Not that I know of. Austin 101990 says, to be fair, the whole country was on fire 3 days after Floyd's death. K-Pack says, it's after midnight, so it's my birthday. Hey, happy birthday, man. As a Texas kid, I went to Greenspoint Mall on my birthday, but heard gunfire. I learned its nickname, Gunspoint. Yeah, Gunspoint. Why would you go to Greenspoint Mall ever? Why would you do this to yourself? You're just putting yourself into danger. Don't go there. Amateur Ant says, how much Jell-O pudding did they give to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to do this? Hashtag I stand with Bill. Toxic Phantom says, America's dad is back. Let me get those pudding pops. Andrew War Snowboard says, MLB player Trevor Bauer has been Me Too'd after rough consensual sex. Sounds like the woman is just after money. I'd be interested in your opinion. I saw this. I got to look into it. Not applicable says, did you ever go through the Cosby deposition? No. Mario Carter 13 says, Feds, I'm altering deal. Pray I don't alter it further. Angry Bellsprout says, I hate myself so much I put rackets on 1080p. Yeah, get harmed. Get harmed. Human Crouton says, if one owns a company and is deposed, could they be asked and forced to answer trade secrets or proprietary information? A secret recipe, for example. Only maybe if that recipe was going to be a matter of dispute for the court. And then at that point, you would ask the deposition to be under seal for that portion of it. You would know that was going to be a possibility, and you would work that out ahead of time in motions. State of California literally disagrees with the jailing of those who commit statutory rape. See their new laws. Earthquake when? Wolfgar says, I am Wolfgar, son of Borngar. Join me on my quest with Drizzt, Brulnor, and Catti-Brie. Now let's go slay some goblins with my mighty Warhammer. I did that earlier. The other day. Samantha Flynn says, I was assaulted. Me Too is still a joke to me. I followed the proper procedure and he's in prison now. Trial by feral outrage mob is not the way. Correct. If you're assaulted, go immediately to the police. There's nothing else. There's so many protections that are offered to you as a victim of assault. Go to the police. Mighty Schwartz says their wallets took the pills. Mario Carter says Nick's math better than Court's reading comprehension. Shakaval says if you're banging VR, is that digital penetration? Yes. Sword and Scale. Hey, what's up, man? Says sent you a DM about dinner plans for your Houston trip. Totally cool if you're an introvert like me and don't want to do it, but it may be fun. I definitely want to do it. I have to check the day and see what's going on, but probably good. Probably good. I'll get back to you. I saw your DM. No one important says, just saw the quartering advocating for the victims in the Cosby Me Too stuff, and here I thought I knew the guy. I have no idea. Mario Carter 13 says, don't worry, ma'am. The rapture will get Kyle out. Cody Duffin says, canceled Prime over their hypocrisy of diversity. Can we watch Death Sport before I lose it this weekend? You better stop. You better stop asking for Death Sport. Amateur Ant says, every Supreme Court justice Trump put in was provided to him by the deep state. Smack my damn head. They all suck in some way. Persona non grata says, hey, Nick, peace and love to you and your family. Allah Akbar, Kang. Hey, thanks, Persona non grata. Peace and love back to you and your family. Stormcrow 900 says, I propose that a group of fat mads should be called a buffet, as in a buffet of fat mads has invaded the Golden Corral and Cece's Pizza. God, I want some Cece's Pizza right now. You just did me dirty. Mario Carter 13 says, before the wall, we had the woodshed, hashtag old yeller. Joel Reese says, Nick, you have a beautiful schnoz. Thank you. Mr. Security says, what's the title of the stream you did where you interviewed that piece of human garbage pedo? P.S. The author of Berserk has passed away. Rip. Never heard of Berserk. I don't know what that is. God, it was a long time ago, Mr. Security. If you email me, I could maybe find it. It was after the first how to catch and convict a pedophile stream that I did. But I think it's called Interview with a Pedo or Interview with a Predator, something like that. Blaine 20 says EVA Yellow Flash Tug Stream. You mean EVS? EVA Yellow Flash Tug Stream. I mean, I like streaming with all of them. I don't know what we have to talk about specifically. Is there a specific subject you're working on here? Silky Johnson says, "Hey Nick, did you see this? The Total Smash rep from Ohio talking about trannies and women's sports, and the fucking lunatic Dems start pounding the table like chimps in 28 days later." Wait, what? What is this? Okay, this is a minute long. We gotta see what this is.
Move to amend with Amendment 1594.
The chair has the amendment. The amendment appears to be in order. The representative may proceed.
Wonderful. The Save Women's Sports Act is a fairness issue for women to be able to achieve their dreams in athletics.
Okay, you're saying the Total Smash rep. So her. Okay, gotcha.
Our state, and is crucial to preserving women's rights and the integrity of women's and girls' sports. Across our country, female athletes are currently losing scholarships, opportunities, medals, education, and training opportunities. This amendment will require schools that are part of the OHSAA to designate separate teams for participants of the biological sex. No school interscholastic conference or organization that regulates interscholastics shall permit biological males to participate on athletic team or an athletic competition.
Do you hear them? What the fuck are they doing?
Designated only for biological female participants.
Wow. Oh my God. Can you imagine these people? Can you imagine being these people? Hold on. I gotta hear this shit again. Just the Lamaze breathing going on in the background. What the fuck is happening?
And training opportunities. This amendment will require schools that are part of the OHSAA to designate separate teams for participants of the biological sex. No school interscholastic conference or organization that regulates interscholastics shall permit biological males to participate on athletic team or an athletic competition designated only for...
There's video of the guy. There's video of the guy somewhere. Here, oh, okay, here we go. It's like I go to Denny's and someone stole his pancakes. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? I always forget. I live in a small town. I don't encounter these people. I don't run into this. I don't deal with this nonsense. But these people exist. They're around. And you forget that they're around. You forget that they exist. Oh my God. Thank you, Silky Johnson. Audi Driver says, you don't go to Cheese Pizza when your porn senses get dulled. You end up watching amputee goblin porn like Drexel once said. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone who's watched so much porn that they're like, you know what, kids now. Nope. Ohio Democrat says, Thank you, Ohio Democrat. Oh my God, he's also the whitest, fattest male on the planet. Does he know that they don't respect him? Does he know they don't respect him at all? Mario Carter says, if you don't have the facts or law, pound the table. Wolfgar says, forget the goblins. Let's go slay those Dems. DCV Titan says, is this a max level chimp out? It's pretty high. CJ says, before the second vid, it sounded like some serious tubing going on. I mean, she's smashable, but geez. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to play it. I just strongly recommend. Well, maybe we'll play just a couple minutes, just a minute of it. Everybody should go watch this video. This is my favorite lawyer on YouTube, hands down.
It's a returning champion, Elgin Tensity, aka Elgin Trapkin, the genuine Lautical. Laurel Hubbard, the mediocre New Zealand weightlifter who became world-class when he started competing as a woman, just became the first trans athlete to qualify for the Olympics. Let's hear what the experts think will be the more gruesome nightmare for the women in the Olympic Village. Japan's tentacles or Hubbard's testicles.
New Zealand has chosen the first transgender athlete to compete at its Olympic Games. Laurel Hubbard is a female weightlifter who will be in Tokyo next month. Supporters call her selection a breakthrough for the transgender community.
For Lucky, the next trans breakthrough will be Hubbard's other elbow.
Okay, so everybody should always check out Trapezosaurus Rex, the human trapezoid. Pedro's Trapalapis. Infinite Elgin Intensity. He's the best lawyer on YouTube. I'll actually concede that title to him. He's great. And yeah, you should check out his video. That is a male to female trans who stands prepared to dominate women's weightlifting. Just good stuff. Just good stuff. But he's big on that issue in general. Here's the link. I've posted it in the description for you guys. All right, that's what I got for today though. I was thinking about it because of the transgender athlete thing that the Ohio rep brought up. But Nirzana says going after his records versus the current female world records, he's actually shit even as a woman. Good. Did you guys see? Maybe we'll do this story real quick. This will be short. Here you go. Here's your new Mrs. Nevada. By the way, everybody happy about Ms. Nevada? Everybody's glad about that. There she is. So Jay is bored. What are you talking about? It's a bad sign that U.S. Customs and Border Security didn't mention the illegal substances that was in the package they seized. Only referenced the Legacy Gray stuff. I don't know. Man, you got to email me. I can't see all that stuff. Just email me. Is that a dude? Yep. That's a dude. That's a man, baby. So that is Miss Nevada. The funny thing is, of course, you now have a man better at being a woman than women. Fantastic. Keep it up. Keep it up, Nevada. Making progress. That's what's with the arms? It's a man. That's what's wrong with the arms. So there you go. I thought it was funny. All right, guys, that's what I got for today. I hope you guys have a good evening. Come over to Twitch if you want and hang out with me to watch Snatch. Otherwise, I am still planning on doing a live stream tomorrow. I've been canceling the Thursday ones because I've been really tired, but I'm resting up better. So I think we'll still have a live stream tomorrow. So I should see you tomorrow. Whether or not there's a decision in Vic's case, we should have a stream tomorrow. So that'll be fun. Orias Rofocal says, Miss Nevada, balls or no balls? Definitely balls. Definitely balls. And we'll see you guys there. All right. When is Drex coming on? I don't know. Allegedly, I think he's coming out Friday. But I'll have Camelot on. I gotta check and see if I'm gonna have Camelot and Drex on or just Camelot. We'll see. We'll see. All right, guys. I'll see you in just a little bit. Hope you guys have a good evening. Thanks for watching. As always, peace. Peace.
Oh, he drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along. With his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight, we'll hear some law-splaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitterland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an art bag, a bow, more a love rug. The spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear law-splaining tonight. From the white shores of Nan to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Doug T to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear law-splaining tonight. From the white shores of Nan to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have